Hi, my name is Craig Jorgensen, and I am a Bachelor of Education student at the University of Southern Queensland. This video is for the Assignment 2 of the course EDC1200 Self-Education Society. The Herald Sun ran a story on the 26th of May about the health effects of locking up asylum seekers. Currently, people arriving in Australia seeking asylum are locked up in mandatory detention centres. They remain in detention for months, or in some cases for periods of more than a year, even though the Australian government knows that it causes significant psychological trauma. Following the self-harmings, suicides, riots, hunger strikes and protests, it seems that government now wants to divest itself of the issue and is proposing sending arriving asylum seekers, including unaccompanied children, to Malaysian detention centres for processing. There they face even worse conditions in unhygienic, disease-ridden cages and could receive floggings with a cane as punishment. So how do I see this issue relating to difference? According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Australia has an ingrained political habit of demonising asylum seekers. These people flee persecutions in their homeland and come to Australia hoping for a new and better life. Instead of hurt, scared and displaced, popular media portrays asylum seekers as ungrateful, angry and violent people who destroy or burn down the temporary homes we give them and need to be locked up. Yet the Department Health advisors say this behaviour stems from being detained in inhumane conditions and is not natural. According to Austin, a group will distinguish people as something other to them and either accept or reject them based on the extent of the differences. The majority of comments to news articles send the message for them to go home because they speak little if any English, have different values and beliefs, have few skills to offer, will take away local jobs, are jumping the queue, and that the process costs Australia money. That they bring with them diverse racial backgrounds, religions, customs and languages only adds to the belief that they don't fit the norm and shouldn't be here anyway. Warnings of Australia being flooded with asylum seekers or having terrorists slip through has served to fuel fear in the minds of ordinary Australians and make it easier to turn a blind eye to the injustice and switch off to the plight of these people in need. It also makes it easier for the government to justify its policies. Thankfully, a growing number of Australians are voicing their opposition, but the ill treatment continues because the dominant, hegemonic view prevails. Is mandatory detention really necessary, or is it because, as McMaster and Austin put it, Australia still fears being inundated by foreigners and losing its white Anglo dominance? It is impossible to imagine that a white asylum seeker from Europe or America, for instance, would ever be treated the same way. So, now to look at incorporating this event into teaching with a goal to raise awareness, empathy and a voice for the value, rights and respect of others, in this case, asylum seekers. So firstly then, raising awareness. In class, you can start by defining and explaining how a person becomes a refugee or an asylum seeker. And then spend some time in small groups researching and writing down all of the basic human rights and needs that they can think of. Then bring the groups back together to discuss their findings and what each means to a person. Have the class then discuss what it would be like to lose one or more of these things. The class can then do some further research on some of the historical and current world events that cause people to flee their home or country because they are persecuted or feel unsafe, and then conduct an exercise on what they would take with them if they were fleeing their home. And finally then, have students look at and discuss the facts and figures relating to refugees, their countries of origin, numbers of applicants worldwide, main countries that grant asylum, organisations that give aid, the exploitation of refugees, and living conditions in camps and detention centres. Also look at how many asylum seekers Australia receives and where and how they are processed. Next then, moving on to feelings of empathy, you could invite a refugee who has been in a detention centre to talk to the class, could read or hear refugee stories and recollections, and watch video clips and photos of refugee camps and detention centres. Students can work on reflective or creative activities covering what it would be like to flee their home, journey to a refugee camp, be held in a detention centre, their challenges, fears, and how they would like to be treated, and also what they might hope for their future. In looking at the value of asylum seekers and notions of difference and dominance, the class could brainstorm a list of all the differences and similarities shared with asylum seekers and refugees. The teacher should convey the message that yes, they are different, but it does not mean they are of lesser value. As Austin says, it is not deficit, it's just different. Follow this with having the class discuss how we as Australians inadvertently demonise or devalue others because they initially appear to be not the same. Following this would be looking at reasons why a country would not want to accept refugees or might fear accepting them, considering if those reasons are rational and ways that they could be addressed. Discussing concepts and examples of segregation, assimilation and integration, and whether these are necessary as well, or are they there to reinforce dominance over others joining a country. Having a government representative or department representative come in to discuss Australia's responsibilities towards asylum seekers and the government's policies and reasons behind them would also be of benefit. Finally, in this area, the class would discuss what values Australia expects from asylum seekers and whether our treatment of them reflects these same values. What messages are we sending and are they appropriate? The class could do an activity coming up with slogans that send positive messages. Hickey says a place invested with meaning affects who we can be. It would be good to encourage students to want to make Australia a place that means compassion and acceptance, not rejection or persecution. Australians can set up refugees to love or hate Australia, and they, as students, have a collective voice in that outcome. In addition to those mentioned already, students could also be involved in a number of other practical activities aimed at mediating difference and dominance. Australia can be a place of genuine inclusion and diversity, says Hickey. An effective curriculum on real issues like this one can open the eyes and hearts of students to see the value in others, especially those in need of help and who on the surface may seemingly have nothing to offer in return. It can empower students to stand for what they believe is right, even if it means disagreeing with a dominant culture, and as Austin shares, can build a social identity that can redefine what is acceptable or normal. Thank you.